On this episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, I go through a review of the first 2 months of Survive and Thrive 8791, and I give thanks to you, the listeners, and my guests for providing some awesome content. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What is up? Happy Thanksgiving wherever you are. I should take that back. Happy Thanksgiving weekend wherever you are. I hope you are enjoying this weekend. I hope you enjoyed Thanksgiving with family or friends. Welcome to another episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Decorah. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of Madison, Wisconsin, our great capital city. You can follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube at Survive and Thrive 8791. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Decorah 8791, as well as hitting me up on Facebook at Tim Decorah. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to the show. Leave us a comment. Leave me a comment if you liked what you heard. If there's a topic or you know a guest who would love to tell their story, and I love to hear stories, email me at tdecorah@gmail.com. That is tdecorah@gmail.com. Glad you could join us today wherever you happen to be. In the car, at the gym, maybe you're in the workshop, getting some work done, whatever. Our mission is to share stories and conversations that make you cry, laugh, and think, stimulating emotions, creating laughter, and inspiring the mind. A new episode will be released on Monday and Thursday morning, featuring a wide range of guests. The podcast will touch on many subjects, such as, but not limited to, grief, loss of a loved one, recovery, professional setback, divorce, success despite challenges, etc., etc. Our guest will share how they learn to survive and thrive. A big apology. Today I am hopefully going to air this. It is Saturday. It is a couple days after the normal Thursday release of a podcast, but Thursday, as you know, was Thanksgiving. So I got a little tied up with friends, family, making plans and arrangements. So I did not get out an episode. So I apologize for that. But heck, I'm new to this thing. So you got to roll with the punches a little bit. And I had to practice a little acceptance that, hey, I just had to accept that it was not going to get out today, but or on Thursday, but I got it out today. So today I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about daily gratitude. And since this is Thanksgiving weekend, I wanted to give thanks for all of the wonderful gifts that have come my way in the last 1,000 plus days. A quick Google search on performing daily gratitude, which is what I do, turned up this. It is said that daily gratitude will create positive neural pathways in the brain, and that it diminishes the prominence of negative thoughts. This happens where the brain changes in response to positive instead of negative experiences. For me, how did that work? Prior to December of 2021, my thoughts every day, afternoon, evening, going to bed, waking up in the middle of the night, waking up in the morning, getting ready for my day, were always filled with a lot of negative thoughts, fearful thoughts, worry, dread, gloom, and doom. But the past 1,000 plus days, almost nothing but I'm almost nothing but positive thoughts and really a positive attitude. And because of a daily practice, etc., with gratitude has led to that. I also today want to take this opportunity to thank you, the listeners. I want to thank my family, friends, and those that have brought me love and happiness these 1,000 plus days, because without you in my life, it would be it would be plenty different. I also want to give thanks to those of you that have been kind enough to hit that subscribe button, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you catch the podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That really gets the voice out of not only myself, but also the guests. And hopefully we bring in more people to get more listeners. More listeners helps other people survive and thrive. Those of you, again, that subscribe, listen, and offer positive feedback about what I've been able to share with you on Survive and Thrive 8791. With your in-person support, then I've heard a lot of in-person, I've gotten a lot of in-person support, messaging via text message, Facebook Messenger, Instagram message, or again, those social media direct messages. You've inspired me to keep moving forward with the podcast. And I can't wait to see what's around the next corner with the podcast. Those of you that have reached out to share your story, thank you for your willingness to help those that might be in your shoes but don't know how to get help, like you did, like some of my guests have had, or to say those 3 words that saved my life. And those 3 words again are I need help. Your support means the world to me. And for that, I am grateful. Family, friends, listeners, acquaintances that I've met, that I've talked to about the podcast. It's been amazing up to this point. And again, I wanted to give my thanks and personal gratitude for all of that. Now, speaking of support, I want to talk about my sponsor. My sponsor up here, you can see the logos. If you can't see the logos up there, you can see the B and H, the black circle with the white inside, and then the B and H. The B and H stands for Buck and Honey's Restaurants. That's their logo. And for their support since episode number 1. They also support the communities that they are a part of. The home office is in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. They opened up their second restaurant in Monona, Wisconsin, right? And again, these are communities outside the Madison area, but in Dane County. Their third restaurant was in Waunakee, Wisconsin, where I had taught for 29 years. And their newest addition a couple of years ago was in the community of Mount Horeb, Wisconsin. Owner Tom Anderson's Restaurants offer a great food and drink menu. My personal favorite, I've said before, is the Bombers Special, the pizza. They've got 5-star customer service and a welcoming and vibrant atmosphere to anyone fortunate enough to dine in or carry out. Now, Tommy, as I've known him for years, I've known him since he was a little kid. He is a Dells guy, Wisconsin guy like I am. He places the mental health of his employees as a very high priority. So much so that Buck and Honey's and Tom Anderson contracts with a mental health professional so that help is always a phone call away. And I don't know too many, I guess I know some restaurant owners, but when Tom told me that in a meeting I had with him recently, I was just very touched that he places the high priority of mental health of his employees as right up there, 1 or 2 with his restaurant. So that is a awesome show of support by the boss, Tom Anderson. So Buck and Honey's, make sure you get there. There's plenty of places if you're listening in the Dane County, Madison area. 4 places to choose from. Let's see here. For me, giving thanks. We're going to start with kind of a segment number 1. I don't know how many segments I'll get to today, but segment number 1 I want to talk about. So for me, giving thanks starts with a life of gratitude. And I already told you I do a daily practice. As I mentioned in the intro, having gratitude and a daily practice can rewire the brain. As I mentioned before, December of 2021, my brain had been wired since the beginning of time, growing up, just worried. There was a lot of chaos in my life, raised by a single parent, and I didn't really know what was around the next corner. There wasn't a lot of consistency, scheduling in my life. So I was constant worry, constant fear, not knowing what was going to happen next. And with my daily practice and over the last 1,000+ days, I think I've been able to rewire my brain. So my daily practice includes goal setting. I set some goals for my day, and typically are really very simple goals, so that at the end of the day I can check those off, because I like to win. I like wins. So I want to make sure that my goals are rather specific, and my goals are also achievable, and that I can get them done, because there's nothing better than at the end of the night when I'm doing my journaling to be able to check off that I did complete my goals. I also wake up and examine how I feel. How am I feeling? Am I feeling good? Am I feeling uptight? Am I worried about something? Because if I examine how I'm feeling, I can address that immediately in the morning with some. If I'm a little worried, if I'm a little anxious, I can do some meditation. I can do some breathing. I can talk to someone. I can talk to my wife. I can get in the car and enjoy a book on the way to work. I can reach out to somebody in the recovery world and talk with them and have them help me get through that. So I have a lot of coping skills that I did not have prior to December of 2021. And then really the other thing is, when I talk about gratitude, making a gratitude list. And I have a list that I pretty much go to every morning, 365 days a year for the last 1,000+ days. I have this really same gratitude list. And that is my faith. I've always had a very strong faith. That's one thing that my mother taught me at a very young age, is the power of prayer and saying my prayers. And I pray every day to God, and that's my faith. That's the basis for that. My gratitude list includes, number 2 is being anxiety free. And I can really say that over the last 2, almost going on 3 years now, that I have been essentially anxiety free from all the things that used to bother me. Now I get the normal anxiety when it snows and I got to drive to work and I got to get on some icy roads. I get a little anxious about that. I've had a couple of trips where I've gotten on a plane. I've always been a little bit anxious about flying on a plane, but I do get those butterflies when I give a keynote presentation. I still get a little butterfly in the stomach, get a little twinge there, and once I start, it essentially goes away. But really being anxiety free from all of the other things that used to bug me. Being substance free, alcohol free, and other substances, I'm free of those. And then my family, my home, my health, my job, and my mental health voice are really the core of the things that I have on my gratitude list. And when I was filled with anxiety, my gratitude list was in reverse order. I thought being a successful teacher and coach would lead to a happier life. So I had my work as the thing. So I guess in actuality, I did have a gratitude list. I just wanted to be the best coach and teacher I could be. And I thought doing those 2 things would lead to a happier life for me. And that wasn't the case for me. It might be the case for those of you that have your job as your number 1 priority, but that wasn't the case for me. Once I started to put my faith and my physical and mental health first, I started to become a much happier person. And if you ask those of people that know me, that are in my inner circle, would probably 100% agree with that. Gratitude continued. I also want to thank my guests who have been instrumental in sharing their stories since episode number 1. on September 23rd, 2024. Episode number 1 aired on that Monday. Without them, the podcast doesn't exist. With them, their stories will be helping countless people all over the world. As I looked at the analytics for the podcast, I should say, Survive and Thrive 8791, we have had numerous views, shares. We've had whole episodes downloaded on all of the platforms, and it really has been spiking over the course of time. We started out, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, my first guest, and then once we got through that, then we started to bring in some different guests. It really has gone up in popularity, and I want to thank my guests who have been instrumental to that. I've done the podcast for no other reason than wanting to reach, have a bigger reach with my wanting to help people who are struggling with something, whether it's a physical ailment, a mental health issue. I want to help others, and if they don't connect with me as the host, then hopefully they will connect with one of the guests. And with 52 weeks in a year, and if I have 2 episodes a week, Monday and Thursday, do the quick math, 104. I hope I got that right. 104 episodes. Hopefully after a year, we have 104 different ways to look at a mental or a physical health issue. And somebody somewhere on planet Earth can look to this podcast as somewhere where they can get help and reach out to either me or reach out to one of our guests and utter those 3 words, I need help, because I have the same issue going on as you. So that's what we're trying to do, is extend that reach. Before I started the podcast, my anxiety, and I want to talk about this just for a little bit, has started to rear its ugly head. So before September 23rd, 2024, that week leading up to that first podcast, I started to, I wouldn't say struggle with my mental health, but it was definitely there. And my anxiety and the little voice that accompanies my anxiety in my head told me, in quotes, don't do this, meaning the podcast. People won't listen. You won't find guests to share their stories, etc., etc., etc. And that was my negative voice that I would hear really almost all my life. And most of the time I would listen to that voice, and it took me away from a lot of opportunities and didn't walk through doors that I think I could have walked through that I could have changed my life. But again, anxiety, as I've said before in conversations with people, is that anxiety is there for a reason. It goes to the caveman part of our brain, and that anxiety is there to protect us. It's going to make us fight or flight. And in some cases, once in a while, it might make you freeze. And in some cases, my anxiety would make me freeze. Think about something like this podcast. And a few years ago, I would have went through everything but actually doing the podcast. So instead, I used the Nike slogan, which was launched in 1988. And that was just do it. And that's what I went to leading up to that first week of the podcast. I mean, I had all of the equipment. I had the microphones, I had the camera, I had the computer, I had the sound equipment. I had everything ready to go, but that voice was telling me not to do it. Well, sometimes I think I went to that point of no return, and I probably could have returned all the stuff, but I didn't. And I decided to just say, just do it. Except for me, I used some a lot saltier language when I said it to myself, just effing do it. And here we are almost 3 months into the podcast, and it's been going really, really well. To my guests, again, who I will be forever grateful to. Thank you for sharing your stories with our listeners and the coping skills that have allowed them, the guests, to survive and thrive. And hopefully they will allow you, by sharing their stories and their coping skills, allow you to survive and thrive. So I'm going to take a little break from this kind of first segment, and then we'll talk about, in segment 2, we're going to talk about some of those guests and just do a quick review of the first couple of months of the podcast. So don't go anywhere. Don't change that dial. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, hit the subscribe button. If there's something you liked in that first segment, make sure you comment on that. I will be right back. Stay tuned. If you, a loved one, or someone you know who is experiencing a physical, mental, or emotional crisis, there is help or resources out there. Contact NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline, at 1-800-950-6264. This is a free service providing information, resource referrals, and support to people living with a mental illness, their family, providers, and the public. United Way 211 is available 24/7, 365, and offers free confidential assistance. They connect people with the local programs and services that can help. Dial 211. Crisis Services, dial 911. Suicide Prevention Lifeline, call 988. To connect via web chat, go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Along with those numbers, there is help. You just need to utter 3 words: I need help. Now back to the show. I am back. Okay, just after a little brief pause there to talk about some important phone numbers. So again, if you are a person who is struggling with your mental health, or you know somebody who is struggling with their mental health, contact those numbers, contact your primary care physician, and get some help, either for you or a loved one, a neighbor, a colleague, whatever it is. Get help. And maybe it starts with you just being a listener. Just be a listener and offer some support to somebody who might be struggling. But what I want to do, this second segment, is to just go through and quick review our guests so far. And if you haven't had an opportunity, and this is your first opportunity to listen to the show, I will just give you a brief review. And if there's something that you liked, you can go back to one of those previous episodes, click on it, listen, and again, subscribe, offer up some comments on something that you liked, and then really just continue to listen. Monday and Thursday every week, I will try to bring you a new episode, a new guest, and some new coping skills for you to hopefully survive, and thrive. So my first guest on that September 23rd, 2024, was my college coach. I played college basketball at the University of Wisconsin, Platteville, down in the southwest part of Wisconsin. And my first guest was my college coach, Bo Ryan. He kicked things off. What I wanted to do with my first guest was I wanted to get a guest with some star power that would attract the listeners. And he did that for me. Coach Bo Ryan was college basketball coach for many, many years in the state of Wisconsin. Very, very successful, so much so that he was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame back in October. And the reason I wanted him to come on is because of who he is and attract some listeners so that I could extend that reach. So if somebody liked what they heard a story, heard me, caught my mission, and started listening to the show, hopefully how this works is that somebody listens to the show, there's a topic that touches them, or there's a guest that hits a nerve with them, and then they pass on that particular episode via phone call, email, direct message to somebody that is going through a similar situation. That's what we're trying to do, is how we're try to extend that reach to help others. Certainly the stories that Coach Ryan shared, I heard way back starting in the fall of 1987 when I set foot on the University of Wisconsin Platteville campus. And for the next 4 years, I would hear some of these same stories, and they gave me the same inspiration and entertainment that they did from 1987 to 1991. They gave me that same inspiration and entertainment 36 years later when I heard them again. And what I wanted was the rest of the world to hear those same stories. And I wanted to give Coach Ryan a platform to share those stories and give both of us. And this is my this is my selling point to Coach Ryan. I said, hey, we're going to have a digital footprint forever. He's got grandkids. I think he told me, I think he's got 12. I've got 2 and probably with more on the way. But we'll have a digital footprint for the rest of our lives that people, in particular, our families, will be able to hear us for generations to come. Coach Ryan took us through the first month of the podcast. My first guest, not named Bo Ryan, was a friend of mine, real estate entrepreneur in the Madison, South Central Wisconsin area. Real estate entrepreneur Charlie Wills. Ironically, Charlie's last year, and he was a part of the Wisconsin, he was a Wisconsin Badger basketball player. His last year with the Badgers was Coach Ryan's first year as the Badgers head coach. Again, I mentioned that Coach Ryan was my coach at the University of Wisconsin Platteville, where he was very successful, won 4 national titles. He decided to move up in the world and went from Division III UW Platteville to Division I University of Wisconsin Milwaukee, where he was there for a couple of years, laid the foundation for a solid program there, and the head coaching job opened at the University of Wisconsin, and Coach Ryan was hired. So his first year was Charlie's last year. Anyway, Charlie shared his story of growing up in Indiana as a child basketball prodigy. And basketball, if you know anything about high school basketball, Indiana is the home of high school basketball. I mean, they've got some of the largest high school gyms in the world in Indiana. So Indiana high school basketball is huge, and that's where Charlie grew up. He had, being a childhood prodigy, sometimes you just luck into that. It's genetics. In this case, it was some genetics, but also the pressures of a father who was very hard on Charlie and demanding on him as a kid. And that firm-handed parental approach would lead to a strained relationship through Charlie's college days as a Badger basketball player. That would eventually lead to a point where Charlie and his dad had little to no conversation between the two of them. And again, that strained relationship would lead into Charlie's adult years after his playing career was over. Charlie would eventually make peace with his dad in the final months of his dad's life. So you want to hear, if you are a parent pressing your kid hard, son or daughter, to become, whether it's in academics, athletics, wherever, extracurricular activity, Charlie will talk about how that can affect if you go maybe a little overboard. So take a listen there. My second group of guests were teammates and friends who attended Coach Bo Ryan's Hall of Fame induction ceremony out in Springfield, Massachusetts. There was a bunch of us that went. A lot of Platteville people with the Platteville family connected went. Some of those people were Rob Jeter, Del Brazil, TJ Van Wee, John Nedelkoff, Steve Garriman, Tim Hoffensberger, R.A. Caves. Those are all people that had connection to Coach Ryan at UW Platteville. They all shared stories. I had them call in. I did my first phone interviews via via phone chat. They all shared life lessons picked up during their time with Coach Ryan, either as a player, as a fellow colleague coach, or a fan that they have used throughout their lives as professionals, spouses, and parents. And when I was doing the interviews, what was really cool about that episode was each guy mentioned some of the things, some of the same things. TJ talked about the same things that Tim Hoffensberger talked about, as well as R.A. Caves and Rob Jeter and Del Brazil, and all of those guys never played, were never on the same teams with one another. They were at different, they were at different times, and they all really said about the same kinds of things. So consistency is what we all got from our time as pioneers at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, and I think that was a strength of Coach Ryan, and it also was a strength of his program, and it certainly helped us all succeed in our professional lives, married lives, and lives as parents. My third guest was my dear cousin, Dr. Amy DeLong. Dr. Amy DeLong is the doctor for the Ho-Chunk Nation. That's the tribe that I'm a proud member of, Native American tribe. She shared her heartbreaking death of her precious dog, Hazel, in a car accident that she was involved in. She was leaving her home in Baraboo, Wisconsin, and she's heading out to see her mom and her stepdad. And out of the blue, somebody runs a stop sign and plows into the side of them. Her Jeep flips over several times, and in the process, her dog, Hazel, is thrown from the vehicle. Her dog would eventually die. Cousin Amy would rely on her family and friends for support. She's a big exercise nut, so she exercised. And time was something that helped her cope with the loss of her best friend and her Doberman, Hazel. And I really enjoyed that episode because my cousin Amy and I are both the two oldest grandkids. I'm the oldest guy, and she's the oldest gal, so we've had a tight connection, same age, etc. My fourth guest was Michelle Coleman. Michelle shared the story of the accidental death of her son, Cade Reddington, to an accidental fentanyl poisoning. That particular episode touched me because the episode was about Cade and the accident that occurred that took his life. But Cade was a student of mine at Wanakee High School. I had him as a freshman, and that episode talks about our relationship. Started out a little bit rocky, but then we kind of met in the middle, and he had an opportunity to tell me what he wanted, and I told him what I wanted, and we came together, and we had a great relationship after that. So it struck a chord the day I found out that of his passing. So it was pretty tough for all of us that knew Cade. Michelle talked about being an advocate for substance awareness and education, and that episode dealt with fentanyl and the stuff that can help reverse the effects of that, Narcan, and then just some signs of if you're a parent, if you're a college roommate, if you're a son or daughter and somebody that uses. What the signs, and Michelle talked about those signs of fentanyl poisoning and what you can do, relying on her faith and also relying on a recovery community. And that recovery community is people that have gone through the same exact thing where they've lost a child to a fentanyl poisoning. And those people that have walked the same path that she has. So she relied on those. My next guest was Mike Chamberlain. Mike is a guy that I've known for probably 15, maybe going on 20 years. But Mike's story is about shared his story about the sudden death of his son, Max Chamberlain, from a fall from a building in 2017. Again, that one had a little bit of effect on me because I had an opportunity to coach Max as a freshman on the freshman football team. in Wanakee, and I coach football. Max was on the team, and so I got to know him there as a player, and then as a student. And oftentimes at Wanakee, we do football camp in the summer, and we bring back some alumni. And Max was one of the alumni that would come back and help out at the camp. And he did such a great job and was such a positive influence and role model with our young guys, our freshmen, that we asked him to see if he would be interested in coaching with us. And so he came back as a coach for a couple of years. So not only did I get to know Max as a player, ex-player, student, I got to know him as a colleague. So his death was awfully hard to take. But Mike's, with the support of his family, the love of his grandchildren, which I know about now because I've got two. He's got a few. And the one day at a time approach has helped immensely for him to overcome that. In addition, Mike regained his love of art, and has a thriving art studio just outside Spring Green, Wisconsin. So that episode will really touch you. And if you know somebody that has had that happen and loss of some children, those two episodes were really good. The next episode I had was Coach Bill Friedig. Bill not only is a coach in the area, but he's also a former teammate of mine at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. He stopped by the Buck and Honey Studios to talk about how he has survived and thrived despite losing his father at the tender age of 11. I've known Billy since the fall of '87, so long time. And it was only until recently, probably over the summer, we were just talking about something we were working on for the Wisconsin Basketball Coaches Association clinic. And I've known Bill and I've known his mom really well. And I finally asked him, I said, "Hey, Bill, tell me the story about your dad. I just don't know." And so when he told me that he lost his dad at the age of 11 due to some cancer, I thought that he would definitely need to be a person that would need to be on Survive and Thrive 87, 91 to share how he got through that time, because there are a lot of people that grow up in a single parent home without moms, without dads, in this case is without a dad, and he found a way to survive. He shares how his family has always been there for him, how important his coaches were to his upbringing, and as mentors and offering advice, and just being that father figure in his life that he credits for all of the kind of the stuff he's learned along the way. So great episode. If you know a person who has lived with or is currently living without one of the parents, either a mom or dad, this would be a definite episode that you want to encourage somebody to listen to. Episode 17 featured educator Amy Frank. Amy is a educator in the community that I used to teach in, Wanakee, and I got to know her as we worked on a project together, and she's dynamite. She discusses her breast cancer diagnosis in 2010, 14 years ago, and she has survived and thrived for the last 14 years as a technology assistant in the Wanakee Community School District, providing support to other teachers and students at the Wanakee Intermediate School. And she credits her thriving as feeding her soul every day, allowing others to help during that time of the diagnosis and the months that followed. Seeing the humor in her situation, she shared some stories about when she was going through her chemotherapy and x-rays and mammograms, and she had some kind of humorous stories to look at that situation. Sometimes people need humor to get through a tough situation. Finding a support group of other people, again, going through the same thing that she was. And she also credits journaling as well. And journaling is something that has come up a couple of times with some of the guests. Episode 18 brought in Kristen Nielsen to the guest chair. Kristen talked about leaving a job she absolutely loved and made a career change when most would be contemplating retirement. Again, Kristen is a person that I've known, and it was a bummer when I found out the day that she was going to be leaving her teaching career. Unfortunately, she had a pretty solid plan B in that her parents owned not a restaurant, they owned a Ace Hardware store in the town that she was teaching in. So she had an easy plan B to go and change positions, change careers, essentially. And she really was bummed about leaving something she absolutely loved. But she said that she needed to take care of herself, as she was always putting others first. And those others would be her students, the parents of her students, her paraeducators that would work with her. So she was always putting those people ahead of herself. So what she needed to do was contact people and get some support from her circle of family and friends. And a lot of them told her, and she alluded to that in the episode, that they could see that she was under some duress, and that they all thought that she was making a good move. So they were supportive of that. And then she wanted to take time to be thankful for what she had. And she was thankful that her parents had decided to retire from their Ace Hardware store, and they wanted to leave it in good hands. So they always left the door open for Kristen to come back to the store and help. And that fortunately was there. She lives a life of gratitude, very thankful for the things that she has. And then she also credits having some goals, and she definitely had to have some goals when you're making a career change like that. Guest number 19 was Laura Sawinski. Laura talked about her diagnosis in 2001 of MS, multiple sclerosis. She credits these for coping skills that have allowed her to survive that diagnosis and then thrive since for the last 23 years. Take time to catch your breath. Be present. Be in the moment. And I think I used a quote from one of my favorite people from the 1980s, Ferris Bueller, during that episode. And I said, if you don't slow down, Ferris said, if you don't slow down, you're going to miss something. That kind of tied into her taking time to catch your breath and get present and notice everything around you. Look for direction and trust your care team. And she had to trust her care team and place her life into the hands of her doctors who were working her through that original diagnosis of MS in 2001. She also credits looking for something that brings you joy. And I know one thing she talked about was being in the kitchen. And the big thing with being in the kitchen, the most obvious would be cooking. She loves to cook, but she also flips music on and dances. And it's just a place where they congregate, her and her three daughters and her husband, the kitchen, and finding some joy in that. She wanted to also credits with her choosing how you want to be described. And a person who has a diagnosis of MS, she is quoted as saying, I don't have MS, I live with MS. So just changing some words around, adding and deleting a word, changing a phrase can mean two completely different things. She turned maybe a negative situation into a positive situation, and she came on the show because she wanted to help others who may have had a diagnosis similar to hers, multiple sclerosis. And my most recent guest was Libby Whipperfirth. She discusses how she has survived and thrived the last 3,000 plus days in sobriety. She credits seeking help for her addiction, attending recovery meetings, talking to her counselor, therapist, etc. And one of the things that she alluded to, again, it's something that keeps coming back with several guests, including myself, is journaling. The big thing with journaling, she said, is, and I'd had to agree with her, is, again, the goal setting. How am I feeling? She talked about affirmations of when you say something about yourself. I'm a good person. I'm giving. I'm also receiving. When you do some affirmations and write those down, You can see it on paper, you write it down, and it's really speaking to you and talking to others who have walked the same path as her, strengths to surviving. And again, that's been alluded to earlier, where you talk to people that are going through similar situations that you are. And in my case, one of the things I had to do was talk to people that are teachers, that are in recovery or that are suffering from anxiety but getting through it. There's no better person than to talk to somebody that is in the same line of work that you are, and has the same diagnosis that you are, so you can relate on that. So final thoughts. I want to thank you, the listeners, for taking time to tune in and to listen to each new episode. If you are struggling with your mental and physical health, tune in and take some advice from some of the guests I've interviewed. They all have some great coping skills, strategies that can be utilized for almost any situation where you need help. Our mission is to, again, share stories and conversations that make you cry, laugh, and think, and stimulating emotions, creating laughter, and inspiring the mind. Again, a new episode will be released on Monday and Thursday morning, featuring a wide range of guests, except for this episode is coming in a couple days late. The podcast will touch on many subjects such as grief, loss of a loved one, recovery, professional setback, divorce, success despite challenges, etc., etc. Our guests will share how they learn to survive and thrive. So what an episode. Really, I loved taking a look back through a review of the first few months of Survive and Thrive 87-91. It was a great reminder of the awesome guests I have had on the podcast so far. And I look forward to bringing in some more amazing guests who will share how they learn to survive and thrive. I look forward to the next couple of months and what our new inspiring guests will have in store. On our next episode, we will have another amazing guest who will share how they survived and thrived. If you have a story to share or you know someone who does, please reach out to me at tdecorah@gmail.com. Until next time, hang in there with whatever you happen to be going through, and with hard work, dedication, and determination, you can survive and thrive. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. Peace.